Look, I don't know about you guys, but I think the Louisville and Nashville Railroad is a pretty underappreciated railroad. The Old Reliable, as they called it, had a rich and varied history, rivaling the Southern itself over dominance over the southeastern part of the United States. Now, when it comes to the L&N, apparently most people think of CSX 1850, I don't know why that is, but it sports the L&N Dixie Gray, which some rail fans have called a blatant copy of YN2. However, the L&N might have had the most variety of paint schemes over its more than 100 years of operation. The railroad's paint schemes reflected the changing tastes and technology of the times, as well as the L&N's own unique identity. In the early years of the L&N, locomotives and cars were painted in a variety of colors, including black, brown, green, and red. There was no standard paint scheme, and the locomotives and cars were often painted honestly in whatever colors were available. Everything was just kind of random, not having quite an identity yet. However, in 1902, the L&N adopted a standard paint scheme for its locomotives and cars. The scheme consisted of a black body with yellow striping and lettering. The locomotive's tender was painted black along with yellow lettering. This paint scheme was used for many years and also included numbering on the lights on their steam locomotives, which became synonymous with the L&N. The Roaring Twenties came along. L&N's leaders saw the railroad as old-fashioned, while railroads like the Southern, its main competitor, were developing an identity, so they dabbled a little in their basic paint scheme and painted up L&N 1517, a USRA-like Mikado, with an olive green boiler jacket and started painting its cars in a two-tone green paint scheme. And when the L&N took delivery of the 482s, they began putting the company logo underneath the cab windows. Then as the 30s came along, the L&N introduced the blue and silver paint scheme for its passenger cars. And in the late 30s, the L&N took delivery of its first diesels, and then painted them up in a familiar scheme to what you'd see on the tender of, let's say, an L&N Big Emma. During this time, the L&N had a strange mixed match of paint schemes, but the first one that was official was the Black Cat's paint scheme, introduced in the late 30s. And after the L&N started painting its consists, new diesel locomotives such as the F3 were painted in a deep blue, creating the Blue Cats, the L&N's second ever paint scheme. During the war years, the Old Reliable introduced the South Wind as its first streamlined service between Louisville to Montgomery, Alabama. The L&N streamlined two 264s, numbers 295 and 277. 295 was rolled out in a bright red and yellow accent paint scheme, which is called the Big Red, while 277 was painted in a black and cream while given red accents. These two steamers would influence the L&N's next and arguably second famous paint scheme, the Black and Cream. In the late 40s, the Black and Cream was changed to the Blue and Cream to match the L&N's passenger cars, after steam was slowly being phased out. In my personal opinion, this is an absolutely drop-dead gorgeous paint scheme, and definitely deserves more attention. As the 40s rolled into the 50s, and as the steam locomotives were phased out, the L&N wanted a new identity. They took a gray, shaded similarly off of a Civil War CSA uniform, and created the first of two variants of the Dixie Gray paint scheme. Railroaders found this paint scheme to be too ugly, so L&N artists came up with the most famous paint scheme, the Dixie Gray and Yellow. This would be the L&N's final major paint scheme change, all the way up to 1972, with its merger with the Seaboard, creating Family Line's Seaboard system and eventually CSX. Today, several L&N locomotives and cars have been preserved in their original paint schemes. These locomotives and cars are a reminder of the L&N's long and storied history, and with CSX 1850 and CSX 1625 carrying on the L&N's legacy on the modern road, the Old Reliable's history won't fade away anytime soon.